coming up in Maryland? Because the primary election is where a lot of these decisions are actually made. So we're looking at June 23rd, 2026. That is the primary, and early voting starts June the 11th and runs till June 18th. So for many races, especially at the local level, this is the election that actually decides who's going to lead. By the time we get to November, a lot of these outcomes are already going to be locked in. And here's the reality. Maryland is a Democrat heavy state. So in places like Baltimore County, the primary is often the real contest. But what's at stake goes way beyond party politics. If you look at Randallstown, Liberty Road, and communities like it, you're seeing the same issues play out every day. Affordability, economic inequality, and a real divide between communities that aren't always on the same page. You've got generational gaps, you've got disparities between neighborhoods, and you have people asking a simple question: who is actually going to improve my day-to-day life? So this primary isn't just about picking a name, it's about choosing a direction. And that's where tonight's conversation comes in. Our guest is running for Baltimore County Executive, and he's talking about solutions like Truth and Equity Initiative and a one county approach, ideas aimed at closing those gaps and bringing people together in a real, measurable way. So let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Nick Stewart. All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. Your man Diamond K in here. Of course, the Diamond K Show, onfirebroadcasting.com, radio on fire.
Hey, Diamond. It's Nick Stewart. I'm running for Baltimore County Executive.
All right. And, folks will often ask what the county executive does, right? And so, in the city, we have the mayor. And the county executive, is that the same type of function?
It is. It's kind of like being mayor of Baltimore County. But I'll say this. The county itself is bigger than 4 states. It's bigger than Baltimore. It's bigger than D.C. by way of population. And so the stakes are very high. And we have a lot of work to do. And that's why this is such an important role.
Absolutely. So we're talking about Baltimore County. But I want to keep this grounded, this conversation grounded right here in Randallstown, Liberty Road, because really what's happening here reflects a lot of bigger issues. So we got economic gaps, racial divides, affordability challenges. And so, it's not really different than what a lot of counties face. But before we really get into policy or anything like that, when you think about Randallstown, Liberty Road, what are you actually seeing on the ground right now in the county?
I think the 2 words that kind of come to mind are underserved and overlooked. The truth is, for Randallstown, for Liberty Road, it has some of the greatest concentration of self-identified Black entrepreneurs. It has some of the greatest affluence as far as being in a Black community goes in the entire state of Maryland, an incredible legacy of folks who are willing to take risks and to sacrifice for their families and their communities. And yet we have had over 45 years, 4 revitalization plans, and we have not made a whole lot of progress if you take them in totality. And so this moment is here where we can finally say we acknowledge that the past has not been adequate, that it's unacceptable, and that's born in some part because of systemic racism and bias that exists in Baltimore County. And we have seen money go elsewhere. We have seen it go to Owings Mills, for example, but it hasn't gone to communities that are Black and brown. And so it's time. It's time for us to focus and to work together as a partnership. I am, to be very clear, Diamond, I am nobody's savior, and this campaign is not that. This is about trying to take power out of the hands of Towson and put it into the hands of our communities. who themselves can be the problem solvers, are the lead problem solvers, but they need the right tools and they need the right partnership. And that's where your county government comes in.
Absolutely. So when we talk about like these gaps, where do you think that they show up the most? Is it housing? Is it education? Is it policy? Where do these gaps show up the most?
I will say this, if you are a Black family in the state of Maryland, you are 2.5 times more likely to be poor than a white family. That is problematic. We see it in achievement gaps in our public school system. We see it in the housing gaps that exist and how the struggle is harder if you are from a diverse background and community. But we just see this underlying bias that exists, this redlining that as a concept exists in many places, whether it is housing or school construction and investment and economic development, all the way to, things like, insurance rates, right? Like we know that these things happen. And so acknowledging it and doing what Cincinnati did, which was they launched a truth and equity initiative to root out, and well, first identify and then root out the systemic bias that was underlying so many parts of their government, and to say that's unacceptable to us. Unless and until we acknowledge that, we're not going to be able to make the right impact to make this a more just and equitable place to live.
Yeah. So when we talk about what the county has gotten wrong over the years, um, what else have they gotten wrong with regards to equity?
Yeah, look, in some respects, it's very practical. Not being able to pull together as a community and say we are going to not just talk about, we're going to execute on a plan of revitalization for Liberty Road. And my plan is to build a true town center for Liberty Road. This will be near Northwest Hospital. This will use the hospital to try to form really a business ecosystem around healthcare research and development, healthcare vendors and suppliers, partner together with Coppin or Morgan or Towson to have an accelerator or incubator for our startups, have an open air music venue for our Liberty Road concert series, to have a place and have a home. You got your retail, you got your jazz club and bookstore, and you got some residential too, some apartments, some condos, some townhomes, and really create slowness and walkability for a community that deserves it. And then to show the rest of the county that this is a lot less scary than people think ultimately that it is. But the equity gaps have been real. And one of the things that we don't have a department, as other jurisdictions do, that's dedicated to human rights and equity. Right now, it's a division buried within an office, buried within a department. My administration will break this out and prioritize it and place people in there with funding in order to drive this conversation around truth and equity in Baltimore County. And we will work with the Westmore administration on their Just Communities initiative. That's JUST. This whole idea was trying to make up for where we saw patterns of systemic bias across the state. And you won't be surprised to know we have a significant portion of Baltimore County that has experienced that.
Yes, absolutely. And so a lot of the things that you're saying, people will be excited about. And I guess critics may say, where's the money coming from? Where's this investment, or who is providing this investment? What would you say to some of the folks that may be critics of what you just spoke about?
Yeah, when it really comes down to it, the capital that we have in a $5 billion plus budget is significant. Not every government dollar is a dollar invested, but some are. And if we're able to partner with the state and actually leverage some of the dollars that they're willing to spend and match them in Baltimore County, we can play catch up in a really significant way on these types of initiatives. That's number one. Number two, we have incredible bonding capacity, and we are completing a capital program for our public school construction very soon, which will free up more of that capacity to build out the infrastructure that we need to do something like a town center along Liberty Road, and to provide the right incentives to do that. We are actually bonding out at $800 million per year. And the one thing I'm very confident in is that in my administration, while we are the fastest shrinking county in the entire state of Maryland right now, we're losing the most people because of affordability, because of this level of inequity. We have an opportunity to use our bonding capacity to help play catch up and make investments that will far exceed the amount of debt service that we will have. My final point here is that in a county that is this affluent, that we have an opportunity ultimately to spend our dollars and to rethink the way we make these investments and to target those things which will bring us the greatest rate of return. So for example, early childhood education, which is one of the ways we close or make sure those equity gaps don't open up, that returns $4 to $7 for every dollar invested. That's real money that provides us with a real opportunity to invest in our people and create a better economy. Because the truth is this, we're growing at 0.6% GDP. We should be growing at 5 or 6% GDP, as compared to our peer jurisdictions. That translates into hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue that we can earn and then spend.
So this, as far as a plan, we're talking about a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan. What's the timeline look like?
With so much of this, Diamond, we talk in these 20 to 30-year time horizons. That's unacceptable to me. It takes 6 years on average to build a new home in Baltimore County, start to finish. It takes 15 years on average to build a new high school, start to finish. It's taken 9 years for Security Square Mall to get where it is, which is not all that far, really. We went out to request proposals. We've gotten a couple back, but we don't even own enough of that property to be able to package it together and make it a viable, investable opportunity.
So that's the holdup with Security Mall?
That's the primary holdup.
Well, so the vision is why is it so hard for the state or the county to get ownership of that property?
Because, a couple things. One, you have a couple landowners who don't want to sell. They don't want to package it together. And the county doesn't have eminent domain authority to say the best and highest use here is giving you fair value for your property, commercial landlord, but we're going to take this and make it part of something better and more special because we have to. Because if we don't do it, it's another 10 years of nothing for Security Square Mall and for the broader Woodlawn and Baltimore County area. And that's just not satisfactory to me. That's unacceptable.
It hurts the community a lot, the condition of Security Mall at this point. I remember when it was a thriving place, and it is. Have you driven through the parking lot there?
100%. Yeah,
oh my goodness!
I mean, it's acres and acres of open concrete. Well, what are we doing?
Yeah. I want to shift for a moment and talk about generational divides. And so we got young people that probably feel locked out, and we have older residents who probably feel overlooked. Yeah. How if it's even possible, can we bridge that gap?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just hit on it. It's this, we feel there's a reconciliation that has to happen in our county. This is between black and brown and white. This is between young and old. And this is certainly between the haves and have-nots. But when it comes to our generational divide, if you will, we have on the one hand, young folks who are leaving this county. And that is the greatest percentage, the highest percentage of people who are leaving. They're younger people or younger families. And then you have our seniors who feel like they're being pushed out because their home assessments, property tax assessments, have increased by double digits the last 2 years in a row. And they feel like, hey, there's nowhere for them to go either. And in fact, we have the greatest percentage of seniors who are living underneath their means. And what I mean by that is that they have stayed in their homes for way longer than others would typically have stayed. And that's because they can't find other senior living options that allow them to stay in their communities that they helped build. That is a moral imperative that we provide that. And so what does this mean? It means if we build more of the things that people want at Security Square Mall, on Liberty Road, Lutherville Station, East Point Mall, White Marsh Mall, we will create vibrancy across the board. And instead of it feeling like I only get ahead if you don't, and you lose something, this pie can get bigger and we can all move forward together. All boats can rise. And that's a big part of this, right? Is a lot of this is driven around housing. Some of this is just the cost of everything. This is the cost of childcare. It's never been more expensive to try to afford childcare at this minute based on income. That's a real problem. But we have an opportunity now to try to solve for some of those generational divides and make people feel like everyone can live in Baltimore County and can thrive in Baltimore County.
Do you think that Baltimore County is doing enough to support working class communities?
It's a great question. No, I think is the answer right there. We have tended to, I think, overlook the working class, the middle class. This is home ownership. This is the missing middle. We don't build. We build single family homes or luxury high rise. We don't build as many townhomes or 2-story, 3-story walk-ups or garden cottages. We look at like Middle River, Dundalk, Essex, Lansdowne, Baltimore Highlands. They have homes that are falling apart. And in Anne Arundel County, they're building $200,000 starter homes because they're reducing the lot size. They're using prefabricated homes. They're using pre-approved housing designs, and they get it done. We need to move with that level of innovation and creativity and urgency to play catch up, to start serving people. Transit, another thing. It takes 90 minutes to go anywhere in this county using public transit because we didn't connect the dots along the exterior of our county to allow people to travel. So it takes 90 minutes to go from Rosedale to Trade Point Atlantic, our biggest employer, because you have to go into the city and then back out. And we did this on purpose because we want to divorce people from one another. And the otherism that is real, palpable in this county and the fear of change has got to be addressed. So these are simple ways for us to sort of push back against both the otherism and the fact that these communities and working class communities have been overlooked. They can thrive. They should thrive too.
So some of the things that you're saying definitely involve attracting investment from business owners, and how do you do that? How do you get folks to do some of these projects that we need? It can't all come from the county side.
No. And look, the government cannot do this by itself.
Right.
Make no mistake. I mean, the amount of money we're talking about here across that board is it's huge. But that's the opportunity. That's the great thing about it. That's the promise. If we were able to lower the barriers to entry and make it more possible to invest money in this county, you're going to see more people want to do it. And in fact, I mean, Simon, you might know this, but 2 years ago now, the county council, through the council chair at the time, his name is Izzy Patoka, he's running for county executive too. He passed a partial housing ban to prevent new homes from being built in those communities that have good schools and that may be overcrowded as a result of new homes. Instead of saying, like as Montgomery County does, hey, we'll allow you to buy your way out of it and build a renovation or build additional capacity. We just said, no, get out of here. We don't want any. So we need to stop doing the things that hurt us, number one. And then we need to turn a page and say, we're going to start over with things like permitting and approvals and inspections. We're going to start over with the way that government operates and put all the decision makers in the same office suite. This is something that the town of Salisbury does, and they are knocking it out of the park when it comes to their process. This is the unglamorous work of government. It's in the weeds, but we're able to do this across the board, and that's just on the housing and revitalization side. But when it comes to things like economic development, we have a Department of Economic and Workforce Development that no one else has. No other Central Maryland county does it like us. We put together economic development, workforce development, agriculture, and tourism all in the same department, and then we expect it to work, and it doesn't. Everyone else breaks them off into two different functions at least. They make them 501c3 nonprofits.
Right.
They have private companies that sit on their board and invest in their efforts. We have 3 people doing economic development on a full-time basis. Montgomery County has 20. We're not doing this right. It is a blocking and tackling exercise. Nothing of what I share with you is really all that innovative, if I'm honest with you. The secret is just what other people are doing. We can do it too.
So, as far as that goes, right? People often want to know that first 100 days. Is there any policy that you would implement in that first 100 days that you think could immediately have an impact on, let's say, affordability?
Yeah. The first thing out of the gate that you do is you overturn this concept of, well, first of all, you overturn the housing ban, and then you overturn this idea of councilmanic courtesy. This is where the pay to play culture in Baltimore County comes from. And it is a practice that's used by our legislators, our county council people, that says we control everything that happens in our districts. I'll vote whatever way you want me to for your district, but you have to vote however I want you to in my district. And in that way, they get to control everything. It doesn't matter if they're professional planners, if they're professional business people, it just doesn't matter. And so that part doesn't work. We got to go up against that. And then we've got to modernize government. I will implement a red tape czar. This is what Pennsylvania did with Josh Shapiro, the governor there. He said, we're going to move much faster. There's going to be urgency in the work. We're going to go through a complete modernization of government. That includes conducting an audit so we can have a baseline understanding of where we are coming from, but then also have this real effort, which will require some money, to modernize the way we do business in government. This is an urgent effort that we've got to get right, but it'll also bring people in because we'll be able to share more information, more data with them. They'll be part of the decision making in a way that they are not right now.
Yeah, that's definitely something that needs to happen. You would have a lot of folks, fighting you on that,
Yeah.
because the
Well, this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way we always got to do it.
right,
That's the issue, right? And
right,
like, we've gotten to a place, Diamond, where 2 years ago, our county council voted pretty secretively to double their pensions before leaving office, including all the people who are running for county executive. They all chose to do this. And it was just sort of this, what was shocking about it was that Baltimore County was not shocked. We should have been upset by this. And we only found out because the former number 2 in the entire county government found out. He did the investigation, he did the research, and then he blew a whistle to the newspapers. So we found out earlier this year that this happened. How is this not disqualifying, number one, but not the wake-up call that we all need to say enough is enough? We can turn a page. We can do better. We should expect more from our representatives, and this is our moment to do it together instead of feeling like it's us versus them.
yeah. It's important, I guess, to say that a lot of times residents feel like that's politics as usual. That's what they expect of their politicians, and
Yeah.
it has to change. But it's just been like that for so long, and I think that it's a perfect segue to the Truth and Equity Initiative.
Mm.
And I want to break that down. What is it, and how does it, or can it produce real and measurable change?
Yeah, and this is a big part of the effort of the administration ultimately. This is about starting with the formation of a new department. So this is the Department of Human Rights and Equity. We will focus on leadership training across county leadership, focusing on cultural competency and equity training. We're going to have a watchdog in this department to ensure fair access and representation outreach across all communities of color. It has to undergird the work of all of the other departments and be really empowered to do that. But its really big effort here will be leading this Truth and Equity Initiative. And this is a complete dismantling of structural racism in the government and thus also in the community at large. And so if you look closely, and you can research this, and your viewers can too, you look at what Cincinnati did. They partnered with George Washington University and ran this initiative in their city to identify all sorts of different instances of systemic bias and where it comes out. And they partnered together with leaders in important business sectors like healthcare and education and the arts. And they started to look at the entire comprehensive spectrum of living in their city And it was a big effort, but it wasn't without results. It wasn't so big that it couldn't lead to something tangible and impactful. And it led to a greater use of an equity lens in decision making, but also in a dismantling of those systems that have tended to lock out or overlook voices that need to be heard. Because the truth, you know this, right? Those folks who oftentimes need help the most, they do not have an opportunity the way that other affluent and oftentimes white communities have to be able to represent and advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
Right? They can't make it around the Beltway to Towson every other Tuesday to go advocate and sit in a meeting for 4 or 5 hours. It's hard to do, or follow all the Facebook conversations and call everyone that they need to call and activate folks. They are trying to make ends meet. They are trying to live their lives on a day-to-day basis. And oftentimes they're intergenerationally living not out of choice, but because they have to. To explain it this way, 44% of our families in Baltimore County live in some form of poverty. They don't make enough to buy basics in life. And about a third of our children in Baltimore County public schools live in extreme poverty. This is $40,000 or less for a family of 4. That is 35,000 children in our county. I mean, these are real people's lives.
Right.
They are going to bed hungry. They're going to school hungry. Their brain development might be stunted because they don't have enough to eat and they don't have the security in life that others have. That's on us. And it's on us to wake up and to take action together as one people and one county. And you will hear me say that a lot. We are one county. And to make more gentle the life of this county for more people.
So the one county approach, it sounds good. How do you actually bring people together when there are real tensions? There's mistrust. How do you bring folks together?
Yeah, it starts with this notion that we can grow the pie. That the West Side doesn't have to be prosperous because the East Side gets ignored. That's just not the case.
Right.
We're able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We're able, and importantly, we're able to plan. Let's just take the East and West Side as examples. We have North County, we have Towson, we have other parts of the Inner Beltway communities and so forth. But you could say to both, we're going to help prepare plans for the East and West Side, small area plans or regional plans for those areas. And then we're going to hold ourselves accountable to them. You will be the drivers of this conversation, but you will know that here's the timeline of investment, and here's also what we're going to invest in based upon thousands and thousands of data points that come from your community, from your kids, from your parents, from your stakeholders on what they want to see in their community. It's a way that other jurisdictions use, including and especially in an award-winning master plan from North Carolina that we've modeled it off of, that's able to take people to the next step in what they can and should be doing ultimately. That's just one piece of it. Part of this is acknowledging that we have leaned into sometimes our worst motives and impulses, and we have tried to blame each other
As a community.
Right, as a community for the things that plague us or ail us. And that, there's not enough school seats, there's not enough homes, and not enough jobs to go around. And so it must be them. That has to change, and that must change. And in moments of great crisis, and you heard me say we're the fastest shrinking county, in moments of there is a moment for great change too. To turn this sort of moment of crisis into a movement. We can do that. We have to just do it extremely intentionally. And so when I get elected, this is about building out councils for each of those councilmanic districts of community leaders. They're not the loudest in the room. They're not necessarily the most prominent in those areas. They're the most effective. And there are those people who are going to be helping to drive the conversation in a way that will lead to tangible early results, to build trust with people and let them know that they are seen and that their government can work for them.
So when you talk about that, the one county, what does success look like for one county in year one of your administration?
It's a great question. The One County initiative will be defined, or its success or failure, in my mind, will be defined by whether at the end of the first year, we have built out plans for each major community in our county. And you will notice on my website, if you go to nickforbaltimorecounty.com, we actually have a tab that says One County. And there is a vision, an aspirational starting point of conversation for each major community in Baltimore County. I've had over 500 individual conversations with government leaders and community members and moms and dads to help build this out. This is not intended to be the be all end all for those communities. It's just a starting point. It's meant to allow us to hit the ground running. But if we're able to say after year one, we're all on the same page. We've done the work. Now it's time to execute, because goodness knows those next 3 years will go by quickly, and hopefully there will be 4 more after that. But the point is, we have to move with urgency, and we're going to prove that out to people that we can do that right. So that's a very tangible way of looking at it. But what I would like to suggest as well is that One County has to be defined by whether we have taken those steps to acknowledge our past. And this includes acknowledging the bias that exists, acknowledging our unwillingness to play catch up, whether it's LGBTQIA, whether it's Black communities, whether it's brown communities in Baltimore County, immigrant communities, that this work has got to move forward in urgency in a new department.
You're saying a lot of good things, and I'm sure that, on your travels, you've been out, beating the streets, knocking on doors. I met you knocking on doors, and you've been talking directly to folks, and I'm sure that this is some things that you've heard on, your conversations with, constituents, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. And that's what gives me such hope, Diamond, honestly. We are not at that place in its entirety where people have given up hope. I don't think, though, that they have any one plan to really launch into and hook into.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to offer, is
Right.
to say we have built the most comprehensive plan of any candidate in this race. There's something to like for everybody. There's something to dislike for everybody, too, if I'm honest. But that's what we're going to stand for, something. And we're not going to be soft-footed about it, because this is a moment that calls for boldness and for courage. But most importantly, it calls for collaboration. I cannot do this by myself. We have a great team. We cannot do this by ourselves. We need the people of Baltimore County to click in and understand that even though the world might be burning, and that certainly at the federal level, a lot of pain is coming and has been wrought, that in this moment in Baltimore County, we can choose to push back, and we can choose to make life better by doing the work of housing and doing the work of schools and childcare and energy. We can do that, but we have to choose to do it.
Absolutely. We've been talking to Nick Stewart, candidate for Baltimore County Executive. And, you have a wonderful family, kids, beautiful wife, but you did not have to get in traffic, so to speak, right? You could have just sat back, watched the cars go past, and what was the conversation like with your family before you decided to do something so public, or was there a conversation that? Give us a little peek inside that.
Yeah, just between my wife and me, just like, you're thinking about doing what? There's an element of that. There was, but God has been good. And he has created a situation that has made this possible. We live with, or my wife's parents live with us. And so that's part of the secret sauce here, is that we were able to juggle a lot of different obligations and things that the kids want to do. We have 4 kids. They're 10, 8, 6, and 5. But I also get to say to them that I'm doing this for you. And I'm showing you that as people of Baltimore County and people of faith, that we take action, we take risk for other people. I certainly didn't need the promotion or the title or the office space. Right? We are doing this for a reason, and that is because I think nothing short then systemic change will get this done. If we continue to vote for more of the same, we will get more of the same. And so there is sacrifice. I know that. I see that as I will miss more of their games. I will miss more of the things. But you better believe that my heart is completely full because of them for this work, knowing that I want them to grow up loving this county the way that I love it today. And I want to be able to see my grandkids because my kids can live in this county. I don't think that's where we are headed as a people. I think we have a chance to turn the tide now, but if we don't, I think these problems become hardened in a way that will make them so much more challenging to try to solve.
So you don't feel it's too late. So that's good. So tell me this: if things were fine in your eyes, let's say another politician, another public servant had done all of the things that you want to do, would you still be running for office now?
No. In fact, I tried with at least two of the people who are running for county executive right now, because I had formed an advocacy group. So I served on the school board. I served on the workforce development board. I serve on the Southwest Division Foundation Board, which is a community development corporation for the Southwest. I serve with NAACP Randallstown and helping to build out this vision. But the thing I established 5 years ago was We the People, Baltimore County, which was focused on the housing crisis and revitalization and a bit of government transparency. And I brought this to them. I said, look, this is our agenda. This is what I believe are the most pressing issues that are and will face this county. And I love your support. I love your help. And I got rejected. They said, no, this wasn't the right time. This is not their issue. Some just didn't believe we're in a housing crisis. I mean, Mr. Patoka just rejected that concept outright. And that's a problem. And that's why I'm here. I looked around and felt like there is a moral imperative for someone to carry forward a vision that looks more inclusive and affordable and modern than it is right
now. Nick Stewart, candidate for Baltimore County Executive. How can folks find out more about your campaign, support your movement? Please tell us how they can do that.
That's wonderful. So we are on all social media. If you look for Nick for Baltimore County, that's sort of where you go. nickforbaltimorecounty.com is where you find us online. And I will say, let me share my cell phone, 410-925-0509. I share that widely. Feel free to use it, text or call. The truth is this: I need people. I need folks who care to step up and step into this breach. Johnny Olszewski, who was our last elected county executive, he won by 17 votes. Out of 90,000 votes that were cast, he won by 17. Every person in this county matters. Every vote certainly matters. And together, we get to prove out the things that unite us. Right? This idea that there is dignity in every person, we get to see it, that we have a responsibility to advance the common good. We get to do that together, but I need people to step up and step out.
Yeah, it's very important. June 23rd is the day here in Maryland. Of course, early voting, June 11th through June 18th. I really appreciate you taking time out to schedule. I know that time is valuable, and I really appreciate you dropping in and talking with us. I definitely want folks to check out what Nick has to say. Drop a comment, of course, on youtube.com/DJ Diamond K. All social media, I am at The Diamond K Show. And I definitely want to speak to you after the primary. I think that things are going to go very well for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you for this service and the work that you do for folks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, folks, I'll be back here tomorrow, but I don't want it to be lost. June 23rd, voting is so important, and your vote definitely matters, and we're talking about on a national level and also on a local level. But you know, the national conversation is for another day. But your man Diamond K, I'll see you guys tomorrow.